Welcome to 52 Miniatures. My name's Alex. This video is sponsored by Corvus Belli. What if I was about to start painting miniatures right now, and I didn't really know what the whole thing was about? Wanting to learn, I'd go to YouTube, find some really helpful videos, sit down with my notebook.
So today's the day where we show you how everything is done. From buying your first miniature and assembling that like a pro.
These videos are great. They show you how to assemble a miniature, what tools you need, what brush and paint to use, and how you wish you could use them. But well, the thing is, I have a tendency to believe in humans as intelligent, resourceful, and relatively self-reliant. Yet we find ourselves in situations where we watch and make YouTube videos that explain the self-explanatory, leaving out deeper thoughts just because humanity on YouTube has decided it's not what I just said it was. We kind of unintentionally pitfall into simplicity. The simplicity might be due to assumptions that if you haven't already gotten into miniature painting, something surely is not quite right. Or maybe the assumption that kids are the targeted beginner. Yet my 9-year-old tells me daily, "Dad, I get it. Stop explaining like I'm a kid." And I don't mean to sound elitist. The basics are important, yet we leave out what might sound complicated, even though it's not. And I think it's important for a beginner to hear, well, more. Also, to get a bit of a pat on the back. So I've made this video sharing the slightly complicated in the shape of a side-by-side narrative to the inevitably more viewed rudimentary beginner videos. Without my colleagues and peers, I would indeed be nowhere. Watch a few of the videos for folks new to the hobby, and then put this video on as the linear notes. Or indeed, just use your eyes and watch what I'm doing. The visuals in this video working on my shiny new Infinity Starter Pack, Operation Sandtrap, is a step-by-step beginner guide just without the explaining voiceover. Maybe we can reclaim what I said about people and intelligence and that. Okay, now that I've insulted most of humanity, we're off to a pretty good start. By considering painting miniatures, you've crossed a threshold. Through the doorway of small model things look really cool. Sitting down doing things with your hands is really cool. World War I planes, magical beasts, or sci-fi warriors are really cool. Stories are cool, art is cool. Coming out the other side is something special. You should consider yourself blessed. Just imagine the alternative. Golf, for example, or speed dating. We're a broad spectrum of blessed people, so please remember in this space we take care of each other and, as importantly, take care of ourselves. Having the hobby is the awesome part. Finding a space in it that works for you, and try to remember that just by doing the hobby, you're winning, regardless of your own or others' results and ambitions. Welcome to what many see as Nerdsville, and I see as enlightenment. I'm working on these science fiction style miniatures for the game Infinity. The miniatures come from a Start Playing This Game box, a new one for Infinity called Operation Sandtrap. A pretty good place to start if one wants to get into Infinity. 2 sets of miniatures, dice, and some terrain. Many like me choose a box, Start Playing This Game box, because the concept of playing games is also alluring. Others need characters or monsters for their D&D. Some just pick what they think looks cool because all they want to do is try this painting thing out. This is exactly what I think you should be doing. Going for what makes you excited is the best choice in miniature, and any path ahead for that matter. There is advice on what minis are best to start painting, based on how supposedly difficult to paint it is or isn't because of details and shape. Yet wherever you start, everything will be new and slightly overwhelming. The result will be the worst miniature you ever painted. You might even think you ruined it. And you'll get over it. And then in a few years' time, you can show people your first painted mini and smile a little at how it looks because you're still having fun, still painting, and in your hand you have the minis you think are cool. These words could indeed follow us. Always paint what is cool to you. No mini is sacred. Paint always makes it better. At first I considered explaining rudimentary brush and paint use, sticking brushes into pots, as something most people should be able to work out on their own. You know, like the birds and the bees stuff usually works itself out without having to watch a bunch of how-to videos on YouTube. But then I realized two things. One, people probably do, just not on YouTube. Two, teenagers that can't keep their hands off each other have not had to simultaneously face overwhelming paint sections in a game store while practicing. It reminded me of a few years back hanging out with my friend Dave from Mini Wargaming. The part about the paint, not the other bit.
Here's the thing. This is paint. Mm-hmm. And this is a plastic miniature. And here's your brush.
I love it when you do that.
And so it's kind of like you just it doesn't really matter. You just try.
I'm overcomplicating it, aren't I?
No, but I mean I understand why you do it because you can get confused because this says it's
very confused.
It says contrast paint.
It says contrast.
This says shade.
Shade.
And like this one says dry.
It says dry.
This is dry and this is layer.
And this is technical.
And that's technical.
Like what?
And so like what's what? And the only really sort of way to find out is sort of to try and put some on the miniature and see what happens.
Okay, just free flow.
And then you might just ruin it. And that's the reason for why we have so many miniatures.
Luckily, this is where rudimentary explanatory videos really do shine. Explaining paints and what they're most commonly used for is a grand way to expel confusion. But tread lightly. Why? Well, first off, your Mini will probably not look like the Mini at the end of the tutorial. Just don't worry about that. But there's another quirk to watch out for. Here's an example. In miniature painting, there exists a layering type technique of layering paints and using what we call washes, thin transparent paints, to achieve what is considered the standard painted miniature. When learning from the majority of introductory services, this is often the technique you will be taught, and the paints are explained in the context of using said technique. And so, hey presto, in just those first baby steps, you've been indoctrinated into painting your miniature with a technique that might set the foundations for the rest of your painting journey. Yet it's just one technique of many. Also, unfortunately, when one approach is preached, others are often automatically labeled advanced or complicated. We've created a system of ranking based on the norm and not what is actually difficult. A system that might just cloud your future judgment. Fundamental thinking would maybe lead to, why are we even talking about techniques? When in reality at this stage there are only two options, to put paint on the miniature or to not. Superfluously, perhaps let's start again. The first thing I'd like to say is, don't even expect to get paint in the right places on the miniature, because you need to paint a few minis to even get your fine motor skills up to speed with your newly found interest. Acknowledge any alterations you might need in your approach to painting if you, for example, have trembling hands or vision issues. Finding a setup that works is a journey as well. After that, learning how to paint miniatures is a lot more difficult than learning techniques. Uncommon is the introduction to miniature painting that talks about the fact that we're going to be doing something like arts and crafts here. So maybe look at this from a perspective of light or shapes or other contexts that usually come into play when talking about painting. You remember what I said about the scary things? Indeed. Who really wants to go there when all you wanted was some blue on your little toy soldiers? But I guess I question the approach to our hobby that leads to the need to label everything by type of paint and techniques, as if that is what really matters. When what matters is how to find what works for you, what inspires you, what keeps you going. Is it not even so that not nailing said important technique is rather a place where we inevitably keep getting stuck, yet we seldom get stuck just painting? Using a learning service to help understand what paint does, what the techniques are, is of course great. As with cooking and carpentry, there are facts that don't need to be re-researched, like at what temperature does egg yolk solidify, or why is my thumb on the floor after using the electric saw. But then maybe we benefit by trying to stay true to our own desires. You are winning because you are painting. The rest will come with time if you want it to. For my JSA miniatures, that's the Japanese secessionist army that I'm working on, like ninja samurai space warriors. I've decided to use a mix of techniques that will get me ready to game pieces swiftly-ish, balancing fun and kind of relaxing to paint with efficiency. The techniques are not difficult and could be handled by a beginner, but getting to a point of figuring out all the steps, what to do and where, is difficult because it requires experience. Experience as in time spent failing. And so something important, and indeed should have a top spot as an important tool in miniature painting in a beginner video, is find experience. Or make sure you keep failing. To get the miniature you like the look of when it's done, to find ways of painting you enjoy, you need to keep painting. To keep painting is like the holy nugget or scone. Time spent will be what reveals what you enjoy. Time spent is where you will learn the techniques you want to learn. None of them will be things you wish you knew from the start because you wouldn't have known you needed them unless you made those first mistakes. And again, remember that the time spent doing the hobby is a reward. Finishing the miniature is one thing, it's like the bonus. Being in the moment of painting is a great part of the hobby that we often forget to appreciate, especially when we're busy watching YouTube. Okay, so now that we're starting to paint minis we really like, and we have our future experience taken care of, how do we know how to paint things? This is another, often not mentioned, but important hurdle. There's a spectrum here, as mentioned earlier, to consider. The personal traits. To explain, let's make things simpler. See, I'm doing it here as well. Anyway, let's say half of us want to paint things just like they look on the box. The other half has other ideas, like looking at other art, books, nature, for inspiration. The first side says, that's just hippie talk, just paint the minis like they should be painted. The second half starts doing threatful yoga moves. I say just calm down, both of you. Both of you are right. Painting miniatures is like many other crafts, practical and artistic. It can be, but doesn't have to be both. And one can hinder the other as much as it can elevate. Sometimes, if you want to technically advance, not thinking about the artistic can help, and vice versa. If we're worrying about getting paint in the right places, worrying about what color they should be can be one thing too many. But letting too many rules get in the way of creativity, and you might start wondering what the point was to start with. Why is even getting paint in the right place important? And in cases like that, don't discredit your inner artist. Paint like no one's watching. This is why, when it comes to color schemes, I personally try and find the story I like and go for ideas spawned from that. For this project, I got inspired by the sandy desert setting. I looked at the official art, but I also drew inspiration from other desert stories and historic desert warfare. My approach became a simple altering some more desert-style yellow into the color scheme, but also a dusty and worn vibe, even rust. What would all that sand and salt and heat look like? Nothing is wrong. You do exactly what you want with your miniatures. One of the most important items on the list of things you need to know to paint miniatures, apart from priming your miniature is really important. Anyway, according to my patrons, on the top of the list of what keeps you in the hobby, a bit of a tiebreaker, yet a real stickler because it can be notoriously scarce, is a sense of belonging and community. To find a friend, a friendly online community, a group at the local game store. It can be someone to share progress with, or purposely finding help to progress, or it can be just someone to every now and again share the moment with. In connection to this, we have the, at times, potential downside of communities, like overexposure to others' progress. When I was a kid, all I had to compare myself with was my friends' painted miniatures and the miniatures on the box art and in the occasional magazine. I'd never seen award-winning miniatures, ever. Now I face them daily. The good thing is I love getting inspiration and sometimes the push to try something I would never have tried otherwise by seeing these, but I also sometimes suffer from trying to constantly paint what I consider is a better looking miniature, and that can be a potential hurdle. When my JSA were pretty much done, the red, white and yellow muted down with the grey enamel wash giving them that dusty feel I was after, my first thoughts were, there's so many things I need to address. This is nowhere near the box art. And what will all the people watching the video think? Yet my son's reaction was, wow, these look great, Dad, you don't need to fix anything. So I put them up on the table in a typical gaming situation. The Sandtrap box includes terrain for those first games, and my reaction was, oh good, I painted them red. That looks good, I can really see them now. What would be cool is some more attention to the bases, but otherwise not too bad. And so I compromised. I practiced fixing some deeper shades and brighter highlights on the weapons, as well as a little dabble of paint on skin tones with a very nonchalant, for me, approach. It's what I felt like in the moment. It's what I enjoyed doing in that moment. I painted a set of eyes just to be able to impress with at least one image on Instagram, but it also acts as a reminder. Playing a game with these great minis and I will never see that pair of eyes. But painting the eyes was fun in the moment. It's not about the logical or the right or the wrong, it's about what keeps you painting. Most importantly, I also used tufts. At the end of the day, this is miniature heaven. That feeling of sticking little bits of miniature fake grass on a base. Makes the base look real nice, and this definitely makes a difference on the table. And it reminded me of what a friendly guy working at my friendly local game store once said. He said he's the kind of hobbyist that will only use the PVA glue that comes with the tufts for the tufts, nothing else. And I'm the kind of hobbyist that thinks it's a little silly they put what is the cheapest, most available glue around in the little tuft box to start with, shipping that stuff all over. And I would just gladly have used the stuff I bought at the hardware store for cheap. Again, this is a reminder that we all appreciate different aspects of the hobby and enjoy the hobby in different ways. Yet all the beginner videos is almost always the same video. Strange that. I'd like to thank you for watching. I hope we can now act with resourcefulness and intelligence befitting of being human and just try our best to keep painting. Oi, stop the hippie talk, said the first half. I'm busy watching a beginner's guide to wet blending from that 52 miniatures fellow. Thank you to my dear patrons. Please join the Patreon to support this channel. Also thank you, Corvus Belly, for the support and for being okay with this content. Did I ever say how cool the minis are? They are. Great box, the Operation Sandtrap. Can't wait to get started on the other faction. See you in the next one. Bye.